Hello everyone, welcome back to another video from mykayaplus. Today we are going to do a very special one. We are going to do a reaction over a very popular Instagram handles. If you are not aware of these Instagram handles, feel free to actually follow them. There are a lot of interesting insights that is actually generated by voluntaries to let you know about the pay information, especially in Malaysia. So if you don't know about this Instagram handle, you can actually check out. They are called the Malaysian pay gaps. And what it does is it allows people to actually submit their contents, which means they declare what position they are taking, how they actually manage to hit this kind of pay salaries, and then what is the role they are playing, whether they are getting commission or whatnot. So it will be quite interesting. You can see that some industry is actually paying quite well. Some industry is actually treat the worker badly if compared to the other industry. So feel free to check them out. But then today's topic is about focusing into one single post that we think is quite interesting because we also can somehow relate with it. Because personally, I'm an engineering student and I will give yourself some time to actually read about it. But long story short, this post is basically coming from a fresh grad that actually enter into an engineering jobs in the local manufacturing companies. And of course, as a passionate young guys come into a companies, he wanted to contribute, but then he also shocked because suddenly he got asked for OT due to some special audits that the company wanted to actually carry it out. Then, as a fresh grad, you don't know anything. Then you ask about something that you think you deserve. You go and ask about your seniors, your colleagues, and maybe up to your manager whether they are entitled for a OT. And of course, the information being given is for engineers, you typically don't get an OTs. And of course, they even go into an extent of telling them that even in some company from a Fortune 500 also didn't do that. They just follow the same practice. So of course, this post basically triggered a bunch of discussion. There are a lot of comments, but maybe from this whole story shared by a passionate, new, and also fresh graduate into the work field, Jupan, you have anything to actually cover about it?
I think this is a very interesting one. And I think this is also the reason that we chose this particular. Hopefully, the person who shared this post to Malaysian Pay Gap, if he or she does not get good advice from the comment section, perhaps if they manage to come a chance across this video, perhaps they can actually get some advice from it. I would say that the advice that we are going to give may not be the so-called typical advice like go and write to the Jabatan Bureau for your OT entitlement whatsoever if you are earning below the particular salary range. But I think we want to approach it in a more realistic way, right? So of course, this guy or we just assume it's a guy, okay, or this individual is actually what you say an engineer, right? And first thing first, he's not wrong to actually ask for OT because if you look at the normal 9 to 5 jobs that we work in today, it's pretty much straightforward. I mean, from the first time when we step into the working world, is that we are exchanging time for money, right? And if the company wants us to put in more time, then yeah, we would think that it is very logical to ask for OT pay, right? But I think OT pays, the so-called policy will differ across different range. Of course, back then when I was working in a manufacturing business, I was quite aware that the workers who are working inside the manufacturing line, they do get entitled to OT because they actually work based on a shift pattern, right? Their shift pattern is fixed, and if there is something that happens inside the manufacturing line that requires them to extend their working hours, then that is where the OT scheme kicks in, right? But for management staff, even back then, I was not like working with the manufacturing line, but I was working in a manufacturing company. There are times that, yeah, I need to stay. I would say there are plenty of times that I need to stay back late. I go back home by 9 p.m., 10 p.m. because of projects. There was no OT pay for me as well during that period, and I thoroughly understand the reason why. Because I wasn't just the manufacturing line worker, and I wasn't entitled. It was clearly stated inside the employee handbook. But apart from that, the I would say the so-called instinct that trigger this particular individual to ask for OT is that, yeah, I think it's very normal, and he just wants to ensure that the hours he put in, there's some sort of monetary return or reward back then. So you look at it from a personal income statement, right? Yeah, if you do get entitled for OT, then of course your pay will increase because of the OT contribution, and your take-home pay will also increase. And I think you will also be very much incentivized to sign up for any OTs if it's possible. So it's, from your perspective, it's going to be a win-win situation. I'm working more, I'm contributing more, and also, of course, I do feel that the company will appreciate it, and the company will also give me back some reimbursement in return. So it's a win-win situation if you look at it from that perspective. But I think if you look at it from a flip side, which is at the next slide, if you were to understand how a company or a corporate run their business, if you are not familiar, I'll just briefly give you an example. This is what a company statement look like, right? And I think, to break it down very simple, if a company sells products, so it will always start by, for the particular year, how much sales the company has generated, right? After you see the first liner, then the revenue will be taken to minus off the cost of sales. So the raw ingredients, your manufacturing line workers, your engineers' salary probably at the back end as well. Because if they are touching, or they are directly maintaining the machines, then a part of their cost can also be parked there, right? Then after that, you have your gross profit, and then down after that, you have your fixed cost. So basically, whatever incentives that are giving to the distributors or the general and administrating expenses. So your HR, your admin costs will also be parked there, right? Then only you get operating income, and then if the company runs business with business loan, so they need to pay the banks the interest expense, and then if there are any loss of sale of equipment, they also have to register that in their books as well, and then only we arrive in the income before income taxes. So in a way, it's quite simple to a personal income statement. So how many, every month if you get a salary, then of course you need to minus off the necessities in your life, like how much money you spend for food, groceries, etc. And then the other aspects that are important but not directly interlinked to your living expenses. So clothing expenses, you might want to save up for holiday, etc., etc. Then when you arrive at your net savings. So it's good that that particular engineer is looking from a perspective where he wants to earn more if there is OT scheme. But if you look at the company's point of view, the engineer is actually not the value creator, right? It's not a salesman. So now you know why sales department usually get remunerated better, right? People might get incentives, sale incentives when they hit their monthly target. But for the other departments, is always at the year end, right? After the company has tabulated and recorded what they have performed during the year, then only they can say, okay, let's apportion this amount as a bonus to the remaining of the department. So when you look at this, then you might somehow get a bit of, I would say, realization that okay, then engineers and some of the other departments are somewhat categorized under the what we call cost centers within a company, right? So the sales is always a profit center, and then you might think, so does that mean I need to change my career path, right? To switch from an engineer to a salesperson? Have you ever had that thought, Chun Bing, since you're from an engineer degree, and then when you look at the entire, I mean, most companies operate this way, right? The sales team, sales department always gets better remuneration and better bonus scheme. And has that ever triggered you that, well, if sales department is so much more emphasized and so much more important, should I actually change or switch my career path?
I mean, like it or not, there's always the profit center and also the cost center. If you think of it, if you want to be a valuable asset to the company, you wanted to associate yourself to the profit center side of the world. In this case, it's the sales department that basically bring in the clients, right? But of course, we are not here to talk about want you to actually convert you from an engineer go to a sales engineers. Everyone have their own talents. Like me
Yeah.
personally, I don't want to be a salesman.
Yeah.
If I have a choice, right? So if you don't want to be a salesman, then you got to excel in some other place. For example, become
Yeah.
a very good managers, become a very good engineers. Every career path will have a way to lead you into success. But from a very skeptical eye view, yes, I would say sales is the one that's easier to connect you with the monies. Of course, you ask me whether I have a thoughts. I used to be a fresh grad. I know nothing. When I come into the real world, the first thought is, why don't I study sales? And I just become the sales guy and then earning big bucks. But there are a lot of other realities as well. But of course, we go back to the topic that we are discussing. For this guy, if he realize he's also one of the asset to the company, what does it really mean, sir? But of course, before we talk about the things, we also wanted to share a few good comments in within the particular post. So if you guys are not familiar or didn't follow the news, actually there's a new act. If your earning per month is actually less than 4,000, you actually entitled for OT. This is by law. Meaning, like it or not, whatever industry, even though they have some common practice back then, if you're below 4,000, you are entitled for it. So this is being implemented already. But other than that, OT is really on the control of the company, whether they want to give it to you or not. But of course, if you are below 4,000, you are protected. If you are not being paid with OTs, you really have the right to actually go to Jabatan Bureau, for example. Yeah, I think this is a few good comments.
Yeah.
And then, of course, go back to you, Jupans.
Yeah. So if you really look at how company manage their income statement, just like how we manage our personal income statement, then you tend to see some sort of come across some sort of realization, right? We want to have better pay. No one wants to have a lower pay. Everyone will be happy to have a better pay, but the same perspective goes to a company as well, right? So if company sales is good, right, it means the company earns more for the particular year. Of course, the company sales won't happen on its own, right? I mean, some sales can be automated. Some kind of businesses, the sales can be much more automated. But there will still be a human element to it, right? Which is your sales department. So every company that does sales, be it software, be it manufacturing, be it whatsoever sector, there will always be sales person that goes up to the field to actually fight for sales and deliver that back to the company. And if the sales is good, because there is a very simple scheme called the sales incentive, right? If you manage to bring in this much sales, then the company will remunerate you this percentage based on your incentive. So the sales team will be very, very incentivized to work extra hours because they know that for every 1 million sales, how many percent they are going to get, right? So it's very straightforward for them. And when company sales is good, of course, the profit will also be much more, and then the company can also portion out a bigger sum of it for increments the next year or for performance bonus to the other departments. So this is a very straightforward mathematic. But if on the flip side, if company sales is not doing that well, right, you might have a very good and talented sales team out there, but because of the current economic climate, things are not doing so well. Everyone is finding it tough to do business. So your sales shrink, right? And then, of course, when your sales shrink, straightforward, salesman or salesperson's incentive also get affected. But I think the bigger part of it will be the other departments inside a particular company, right? Your sales is not increasing much. You cannot have the so-called luxury or budget to increase your salaries and your increment or even give out a better bonus for a particular year. So I think you can see it from a very layman examples happening in the real world. When interest rate went up, a lot of tech companies either freeze hiring and also do a lot of retrenchment. This is a very straightforward example. And this also jive with this example that we are trying to show you, right? If the company thinks that they're not going to grow, and if they still want to maintain a very respectable net income on a year-end basis, so they have to think of way to cut costs, right? I think if you are in a company and if your company is not doing well, straight away you have heard this terminology, all companies looking to cut costs, so you will look at a lot of potential kind of a cost savings project having launched in your company, and there's also potentials where the company might even go into VSS, like voluntary separation scheme, and even retrenchment as well. So it's a very realistic kind of example that I'm trying to give you. So of course, at the end of the day, if you are someone who actually thinks that, well, if sales team is so much incentivized and it's so easy to get remunerated because of the scheme, of the sales incentive scheme, and you want to switch your career, by all means, go ahead. But this is not the message or advice that we want to deliver to you. We are just trying to paint you a very realistic game that how companies around the world are operating. So you can still be a very passionate engineer, as what you're being said. Yeah, you can still stay within your area of expertise, become a very good manager or become a very good engineer, but you still need to work on something to ensure that even though your pay, your increment, your bonus might not be as lucrative than your colleague working in the sales department or your friends working in sales, at least you must do something, right? We talk about how important investment is or investing is and how it can also help to compound wealth. So let's say if your company that you're working in is a listed company, right? And you have, I would say, first-hand knowledge of how the company will perform, right? Because if sales is very good, the lines will be running at much more capacity, right? You will see that the company is planning to do expansion, right? They buy more machines, and then the machines are running non-stop. So these are the small signs that you can get hints that sales or performance of the company is going to be good. And if the company is a listed company, and if there is no restriction for you to invest in a company share, yeah, you can still remain as an engineer. You can still do your daily job, is your passion, but do ensure that the money that you have saved after every month, you can actually apportion it out to actually buy into the company shares, right? It's a very straightforward kind of habit to kickstart it, and it's also a very simple way to get into investing because you already know the basics of it. So from there, that's the first step, I would say. And after that, if you do come across other kind of potential investment candidate, you can also use back the same mind framework to actually gauge, analyze, and jump into your second, third, and successive upcoming investments as well. So I think this is an interesting topic to actually make it into a video to share with you guys as a realization that no department is going to be treated fair and square. And if your company, if you're somehow in a department that is the call center, it's not the end of the world, but at least make sure that you realize this fact that is currently happening, and you are actually taking action to ensure that you are not so left behind in the so-called game of actually growing your wealth in the coming years. So, jumping on your end, any other advices or realizations that you may come across after this sharing by Malaysian Pay Gap?
I think a lot of industry, other than all those punch card type kind of works, you won't be entitled for OT by the company policy from day one, right?
Yep.
You may feel being treated unfairly because you always receive this kind of inspiring quotes such as you are getting paid to learn, right? You can, and then you are doing this for your future career. You are doing this to do that. Yeah, all this is correct to a certain extent. But beside for you yourself to learn your experience, pick up some skills. I mean, you die hard ask for all these, it's just never enough, right? Might as well you will have to sharpen your skills so that you get a higher pay, or you tap yourself together with the company. The easiest way is like what Jupan say, investment. If you're familiar with your company, you can invest in it. And if you're familiar with your company, means somehow you will be also familiar with the industry as well. Then you also can find some candidate from the industry in Malaysia and look for investment opportunity. And if you get familiar with the same industry in Malaysia, you can also go beyond Malaysia. For example, if you're in semiconductor, let's say one of the company working in Malaysia, you can also go in worldwide scale, let's say AMDs, NVIDIA, and so on. So this is an example. Of course, once you're done with industry, you should get the fundamental of it. You can go into other industry. So this is how you actually can expand your knowledge in investing by not investing in something you don't know. You need to invest into something that you know, or at least you do enough research about it. Else, it's as good as you are gambling into something, and of course, you don't have calculated risk, and the end result usually will be bad as well. So I love one quote that I always wanted to share. The money that you earn from luck, eventually you lose it all. So don't think the luck come from sky. If you didn't really earn it by your own abilities, you definitely will lose it all eventually. Let's say in 5 months, 10 months, you will lose it all. So don't rely on luck. Rely on yourself. Research more so that you can do a calculated decision. So this is everything I wanted to share. Hope this video can actually deliver some message to the students. And also, if you like the content that we are sharing today, feel free to exchange some comment into the section. We will definitely look into a comment and reply accordingly. And feel free to also like and share the videos. I think that's all for today.
Yep.
Thank you and see you next
See you in
time.
the next one. Take care. Bye bye.
Bye bye.